Today, we are going to be building this, which is a fully responsive Masonry-based gallery, even with little special hover effects. Now first, before we begin, check out this green phosphorus monitor in all of its glory from the early 80s. I'm buying up a lot of old gear in anticipation for my 500,000 guitar play reveal music video set in the retro wave 80s era. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is a masonry layout? Well, chances are, if you've been on the internet for any length of time, you have seen image galleries or photo galleries like this. And what sets them apart is the fact that we have an unequal amount of height, yet everything kind of just falls together perfectly. And this really works well for image-based or photo-based galleries like this. So you can't really pull this off with just pure CSS alone if you're not really certain of what the height and of your actual cards or your photographs are. So you have to rely on a little bit of JavaScript, and there's a couple libraries for that. And the first masonry library that came out was back in 2011. Since then, there's been a couple other ones, and one that we're going to use is called Colcade, C-O-L-C-A-D-E, and it's literally 1/8 this size. So we're going to use that, and you're going to see it is extremely simple to use. I'll show you exactly how to get set up and use it. So yeah, make sure to subscribe, of course, if you haven't yet, and let's get started. Before we begin though, Linode, the sponsor of this video, makes it easy to host your site, your app, or service on whatever technology stack you use. With one-click apps like WordPress and Drupal, getting up and running is easy. With backend access to your server, customization options are all but limitless. A fully configurable DNS manager allows for you to easily switch your domain over to your new server, and SSL certificates can be installed for free using open source tools. So sign up using the link below to get $20 in credit on your new Linode account. Alrighty, so we're here at GitHub, and we're at the main page. I've linked this in the YouTube description at Colcade. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. But again, it's a lightweight masonry layout. So it gives you a feature comparison versus the original masonry, which I believe was released in 2011, a long time ago, almost 9 years. But this is just a few years old, and it's, the main selling point here is it's 1/8 the size of masonry. So that's huge. All right, so it tells you how to install it. Of course, we're just going to be quick and easy about it. We're going to use a content delivery network or the CDN. You can use NPM or anything else to get it working. And it does work with jQuery and just regular vanilla JavaScript, which we will be using as well. So I have Visual Studio Code open here with a blank folder called Masonry. So we're going to create an index.html. Then we are going to exclamation point enter for an Emmet abbreviation, link, enter, and CSS main.css. All right, so also we're going to have a CSS folder with a main.sas file, and momentarily this will tell me to start watching it because I have the SAS live compilation plugin. You can install that over here. Just do a search for it. And we also will be using, right-click on my index.html, live server. So a live server extension can be installed over there as well. So here's our very blank project. Let's close this out, or actually we can minimize that. And let's get started. Oh yeah, one more thing. We want an images folder. You can use downloaded images if you want from unsplash.com, which is what I did, or you can just, link to something else, existing photographs or whatever. So I'm just going to get that folder in here with those files. Okay, so here are the images, just 1 through 13, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to use all of them, but I wanted to give myself enough to use. And I guess the first thing we'll do is you get that CDN linked up right here. So I thought I copied it. I must have copied over something else. Get out of here, Facebook. And we're going to go over here and just copy that CDN right there and just put it right there. We're also going to have, in order to initialize it, and that is in the documentation as well, coming down here. Where is the initialized code? With vanilla JavaScript. This is the one that we want. jQuery up here. Obviously a lot more simplistic, but then again, you have that massive jQuery library if you're going to be using that. So we're going to use this option right here. Oh, you have two options if you want to use element as the first argument or selector string as the first argument. So we're just going to do that, and we're going to paste that right here. So as you can see, it's referencing a few different things. A grid class. So this is the parent container of your gallery, your Masonry gallery, and then your columns, as we can see here, is grid columns. All right. So and then there's going to be a grid item inside each column. So let's create the markup, the HTML markup for that in order for that to work. So the first thing that we will have is a container, which has nothing to do with this Colcade or our Masonry stuff. I just want to put everything in its own container, and we'll style that up in HTML and CSS, or CSS rather, in a little bit. We're also going to just have an H1, my photographs, or my gallery, whatever you want to say. And then inside of here, we're going to have the parent container of the grid, and that is going to be called grid. So that's in reference here to this first argument, grid class. All right, so after that, this part's real important to understand. This is your columns, all right? So your columns, depending on how many you want ultimately, like on a full desktop, are important. So they have to be structured like this. It's going to be a class of grid-call, and also we're going to put in right here another grid-call -1, and then we can reference this in CSS a little bit later. All right, so in here is where your content goes. This is where we will reference, well, normally it's where you would reference and your images would go, but we're not going to do that. That's actually what this Colcade actually does. It takes your markup and your images, and it puts them in here based on the need or the column structure in order to get the effect working. Boy, I screwed that one up. So what we want to do is, depending on how many columns you want to have here, just replicate this a few times or paste it. I'm going to have 4. Okay, you could have 3, 2, whatever. We're just going to say 4 right there. Okay, so then we put in after all of this, still within the same grid container right here, we put in each item. All right, so that means the item would be, could be a photograph, could be a card or whatever. So we say grid-item. Let's separate these out. Probably want to put a comment here just to let people know exactly what's happening. So what we would have here now is like if you just want it to be pure photographs, it would be like an image source. So image source, images, 1.jpg, alt, I'm just going to put picture. We also, I kind of want for this, I want to have just kind of like a piece of content that overlays on top of it. So we'll say content, and then we'll put in just a simple H2 airplane, whatever. Probably wouldn't use an airplane, probably could use a paragraph for this, but that's how I set it up, whatever. And that's it. So you could put more content if you wanted to, like if you wanted to have more information shown on top of the photograph, but for now, this is fine. So this right here is each grid item or your photograph or whatever. We can just put however many of these as we want and keep on just pasting them. So we put 2 here, you customize your content, and you're good to go. What I'm going to do is just take these and paste them a bunch of times so that we have like 20 or 30 of them. And I'm going to do that, and then I'll pause, and then I'll come back. All right, so here we go. I have a bunch of them. I kind of copied and pasted them over a bunch of times. Okay, so now if we go ahead and view this, of course, in the browser, it's not going to look very good at all, because mainly the images aren't responsive, or in other words, we have to put make the images a width of 100%. So before we start taking a look at what's happening here, let's get some basic rule sets out of the way. So we'll do body, margin 0, so we're resetting the margins, font family, Montserrat, of course. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to bother importing it for this demo. We'll say H1 just move that H1 element that we have initially from the top. Let's see, our images width 100%. That's what I was talking about. And also to get everything kind of situated better, we have to put some initial CSS. This is also in the documentation as well. So we have our grid, which we're going to make a flex box. All right, so display flex. And then we're also going to put flex flow row. And actually, no, we're not going to put flex flow. Sorry, not going to do that. We're also going to have a grid column. By the way, we might as well use nesting here. We're using Sass. There we go. So our grid columns is going to be flex 1, and padding is going to be 0 and 0.1 EM. So that's just going to give right and left padding. And there it is. As you can see on mobile, it doesn't look quite right here. So we would probably only want to show just 2 columns max on the mobile version. So what they suggest doing, or the creator, is to show or to hide rather the columns, 2 of the columns. So what we'll say is grid call. Oh yeah, put your fingers in the right space, Gary. Grid call 2 and grid call 3. Or wait, no. Yeah, grid call 3. We'll say display none. And so now we have our 2 columns here. These don't look correct because of the airplane, the type, the H2s that we have on there. So what we would want to do is make those absolute in terms of position. So let's go ahead and work on the content. So the content would be position absolute. Let me move things over here just so we can see exactly what's happening as we code. All right. Position absolute, we'll say background is going to be RGBA 000.2. All right. And then we're going to say color is white. And then we will also say font family. Actually, we can leave that alone. We can leave it the same font family. And then also, we'll say margin top 1 EM. All right. And then our H2 element inside of there is going to be margin 0.2 EM on the top and bottom and 5 EM on the right and left. And then we will say font size 1 EM. All right, so that's looking pretty good there. We can see our Masonry layout is working perfectly. You can see we have varying heights, and everything is, in terms of our padding and stuff, our spacing, our white space between each element is looking good. All right, awesome. Oh wait, this is supposed to be 0.8. There we go. There we go, much better, a little bit more readable. So now if we expand this out to larger resolutions like tablet and desktop, we can show or bring back the other content, the other columns rather. So we'd use media queries for that. So by the way, I kind of don't like the idea of hiding content, in order to make it responsive. So there are other things you can do. You can make the rows span maybe just 1 per column if you want initially, and then rewrite. So you have options in terms of how you want to do this. We're going to say minimum width is 768. And we'll say here, container. By the way, our container we're going to set at 95%, oh, no, width, there we go, 90%, there we go. Did we ever define our container up here? I don't think we did. Yes, we need our container. Sorry about that. Container, of course, is just going to push things away from the edge of the browser at this viewport. So our container right here is going to say width is 95%, margin 0 auto. That will center it up. There, a little bit better. You could probably get away with like 97 or 98. All right. Then what we'll do is, so we're going to shrink the size of the container once we get out to a little bit larger right there, as you can see. That's the breakpoint. And then we also want to increase the spacing between these elements as well for that. So our margin, our H1 rather, we're going to increase the margin to 3 EM on the top and bottom, so just pushing it down just a little bit more. Also have our grid call -2, and this is going to be display block. So we're going to have a 3-column layout right here. And you could stick with 3 columns if you wanted to, or if you wanted to have 4, we can bring that back at a further breakpoint, which we will. After that, let's get the spacing. So our grid columns, we just have to add a padding of 0 and 0.5 EM. And also our images, we're going to add in a margin bottom of 0.8 EM. I found worked pretty well. Let's see here. All right, so something's wrong. Let's see. Yep, 0.5 EM, and margin bottom is 0.8 EM. Oh, we could take this out here, although it would render like that anyways. But now we can take this off, and that's there. Okay, that way we can get rid of important. Okay. All right, I understand. Okay, it wouldn't render like that. I was not thinking correctly. There we go. So now that's working and looking pretty good. What else do I want to change? I think that is almost it. I think just for the fun of it, just to show you how to do this, I wouldn't necessarily do this in this type of context, but if you wanted to hover over these and reveal like some card information, I'll show you how to do that. So we'll do it at this viewport right here. We're going to have it show automatically, but just because you're on a mobile device and you don't have hover there, here on like a maybe desktop or around there, we can have it hover and show that information. So the way you would do that is we're going to say grid item hover, and we'll say cursor pointer first. So it's going to change that cursor to a pointer icon, and then content, which is what the airplane is a sibling of or a child of. It will be opacity 1 and transform translate X 0 at its original starting point. So that means then we will change on content right here within the same media query, opacity 0, transform translate X, we'll say -0.5 EM, so it's going to come over from the left. We'll also say transition, let's see here, all, and then 2 seconds. And we can use the will change property of opacity and transform. Those are going to be 2 elements that we're going to change. So we come out to that media query, and there we go. Awesome. All right, so we have one more media query, and there's just a couple rule sets in it. It's very simple. It's going to be media min width of 1080 pixels. We're going to say grid call 3 display block. So now we come out here. We have 4 columns. All right, and then what else do we want to change? We'll say container width 80%, and then also finally H1, we'll make our margin bigger, 5 EM and 0. All right. Awesome, works well. All right, hopefully you guys found that enjoyable and you learned something new. If you could end up making something with this, let me know in the comments below. I'll check it out. And yeah, make sure to subscribe as always, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye. Masonry-based layout. No, it's masonry-based grid. No, it's a gallery. So first, check out the green phosphorus glory of this monitor right here from the early 80s. And you're probably wondering, why do you have that monitor? Well, I've been buying up old retro gear in anticipation. Well, as you can see, it doesn't really look all that correct, but don't worry. damn, it's showing my damn bull desktop. Don't be loud, kids! Today, we're gonna be building this, which is a fully responsive gallery. Mason, dude. Now first, check out this awesome green phosphorus monitor from the 80s in all of its glory. Yes, I'm buying up old vintage gear because very soon, once I hit 500,000,